When late Mr. M.S. Oberoi was kind to give confidence to a trainee steward, confidence for life. That's the story for the day. Now, late Mr. M.S. Oberoi, whom who was like Mr. JRD Tata when dealing with people, especially the people in the lower levels of the hierarchy, very kind, but the perception of Mr. Tata was, but what the industry and what others thought of Mr. Oberoi was that he was a very tough person, not very kind. But those working in the Oberoi hotels always had this respect for Mr. M.S. Oberoi for being kind to people, and that was his hallmark. While JRD's kindness to people and his interaction with people is known, Mr. M.S. Oberoi is not known outside those who work with the unlike those who work with the Oberoi Hotel. Now I haven't worked with Oberois, so I was always in that thing that with the figment of imagination that Mr. M.S. Oberoi was a very tough person and not prone to patience. He was quick to he would have been quick to lose his temper on anybody and anything, falling short of standards. But then Mr. M.S. Oberoi, we forget, is the father of the Indian hotel industry, as that's what Mr. JRD Tata, late Mr. JRD Tata, titled him, and rightly so. Now I had heard a lot of the respect that both had each for each other, and he was the first hotelier in India, Mr. M.S. Oberoi, to bring in a foreign, a reputed brand as a franchisee, the Oberoi Delhi Intercontinental, then in those days. And then there's a story of his telling his daughter, then, the visionary that he was, that wherever you travel in the world, you'll be hosted at a Oberoi hotel, and he achieved that. So that's the kind of person we're talking about. During my industrial training at the Taj Connemara in 1985, I was in the front office department and I was asked to read the letters in the dead letters file. So I was flipping through correspondence board and suddenly I chanced upon a letter from Mr. JRD Tata to the general manager of the Taj Connemara, informing him of Mr. Oberoi's impending visit to stay at the Taj Connemara, because those days there was no Oberoi Trident at Madras. So Mr. JRD was staying at the Connemara. So Mr. Tata's language, so you can understand what kind of standard it would have been, instructing the general manager in micro detail as to who Mr. Oberoi was and what he meant to the hotel industry and what all had to be done to ensure that he had an experience worthy of being the father of the hotel industry. Now, that letter I lost somewhere and I don't know. So now I still had this in my mind that he was a tough taskmaster, but he was kind, and I was always under the impression that he was very curt and could have a sharp tongue with anybody and everybody who was working at Oberoi's hotels. But then I had a chance meeting with a principal of a catering college in Palakkad, and I was invited as a motivational speaker, and over lunch, as we were discussing, he said, knowing about my stint in Delhi with the IHM, Pusa, he said, even I worked at Delhi. I said, where? He said, at the Oberoi Delhi. I said, wow, fantastic. So you must have some standards in you, I said. So he said, I was just a trainee steward, but something big really happened. I said, what happened? He says, once what happened was that we had a full house and there was nobody there in the room service. And we got an order from Mr. M.S. Roy's office that he wanted some tea. So now I've been the only one there. The senior captain there arranged a tray for me and said, I was absolutely nervous. He said, don't worry, go ahead. I was intimidated. I just 3 months into the service, and I was asked to serve Mr. Oberoi. I was in awe. I mean, who's not in awe of him? Anyway, I walked up, and now that I've been given the onerous responsibility, I walked up to his office. I timidly knocked on his door, and he asked me to come in, and I identified myself with the typical introduction that we give. And I asked him, I said, sir, would you like... then I asked him the two standard questions that we ask for serving tea. He says, yes, please. Now he noticed that I was holding the tray, not balancing it on the on the fingers of my left hand, but I was holding the tray with both hands, and my knees were tottering, my fingers were shivering a little bit, and he could sense that, and he tried to make it as comfortable as possible for me. And then he asked me to make it comfortable. He asked me about my name, where I was from, and I told him I was from Kerala, etc. And he inquired more and more about my family, etc. So I did grow. I said, this man is wonderful. He's nice. He's got a very paternal approach. But still, and I asked him, when I was about to serve him tea, I asked him, is it tea with milk, tea without milk, etc. All those standard questions, sugar. Now that's when he said, son, wait. He put a very calm, reassuring palm on his palm on my shoulder and said, son, one moment. Now, I know you're nervous in my presence. Now, what I want to do is, you learn how to serve tea. I know today there's been a little bit of a problem that they would not have sent you alone. There would have been a senior captain with you to help you, to give you that confidence. Now, so that great gentleman, he took the tray from my hand and proceeded to coach me, not instruct me, coach me as to how to serve tea. And I was awestruck. I said, this great man has taken this pains for a trainee steward. Then he asked me, he says, now you take the tray, come back again into the room and serve me tea. I was asked to do a dress rehearsal again. And I could do it with ease. So he says, after I finished, he was very happy. He says, good show. I was thanking effusively when he said, what did you learn? I said, I learned serving tea. He laughed. So he says, well, that's good. But then, what do you learn more than that? Now, I was in my teens almost. So he says, remember. The worst thing you can do to a human being to anybody, is to damage his confidence for life. Now, what happened today now, and what happened now is, he says that now you are confident to serve anybody, anywhere, all alone by yourself. I mean, I had literally blurted out that I had learned to serve tea. So then he said, no, more important, the fear was removed from your mind. You became confident. Now see yourself. You're not all nervous. See, you're so beautiful. He did not reinforce failure. He reinforced confidence in me. So he says, what will you do now in the future? Then he himself said, when you go in the future, you're not going to be a trainee steward for your life. You'll grow in personal life and in professional life. Remember, you shall always treat the other human being as a human being and pass this lesson on. I realized I was so blessed that day to serve Mr. msoberoi, because I learned a lesson for life, and lessons more than one. And I was returning back Thought that what a great man he is, isn't he? A man is not great because of his achievements alone, but more importantly, for being nice to the lowest, to the employees lowest in the hierarchy. That's what nicety is all about. So that's the measurement of a man's greatness. How nice you're to people lower in the ranks. Nicety is important, especially to people who matter in your organization or your life, but they are not the suited, booted variety. They are the kitchen stewards, they are the gardener women, they are the bus boys, they are the cooks, they are these little people whom we at times treat contemptuously with disdain. He made ensure that. So now I don't get angry with any of my students in the college, and that's because of Mr. Ms. Oberoi. So I came back home returning with a great lesson that I learned that day, that never ever jump to conclusions. Never ever jump to conclusions about a man. Don't judge a person without knowing about him. Now I have a different picture of Mr. M.S. Oberoi. Embrace nicety to enjoy being blessed and to pass on the confidence. Thank you.